Welcome back to Noetic Resonance. Some stories can only be told by the people who lived them. In part 1, I gave you theology, the framework, and my testimony. Today, I'm not the only one talking, though. Sitting with me are two people who were inside this with me. My mother, Dena, who by every earthly measure should not be here, and yet she is. And my nephew, Devin, who at 21 years old made one of the most courageous spiritual decisions I have ever witnessed, and who I am honored to call my son. What you're about to hear is not polished. It's not rehearsed. It is real people telling the truth about what darkness looks like from the inside and what it looks like when it finally breaks. Before we go any further, I need to take a moment with you. What you're about to hear is raw. It is real, and it is heavy in the way that only truth can be heavy. This episode contains explicit discussions of suicide attempts, multiple attempts, across multiple generations of one family. It contains discussions of childhood trauma, sexual abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, manipulation of a child, severe mental illness, and the kind of spiritual warfare that doesn't get talked about in polite company. If you are currently struggling with suicidal thoughts or ideation, please know that you are not alone and help is available. Before you continue listening, I want to make sure you are in a safe and supported space. You can reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by simply calling or texting 988. Please use it if you need it. There's no shame in that. None. If you have recently lost someone to suicide, please take care of your heart today. This episode may bring things to the surface that need tending. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to come back when you're ready. Grief has no timeline and neither does healing. If you're a survivor of childhood abuse or manipulation, some of what is shared today may land close to home. Please be gentle with yourself there as you listen. This episode is not intended to replace professional mental health support. I will say what I always say, the sacred and the clinical work together. Please pursue both if you need both. What I can promise you is this. Everything shared in this episode is shared from a place of love, courage, and the genuine desire to set people free. Nothing here is for shock value. Nothing is for entertainment. These are real people telling the truth about real darkness so that someone else doesn't have to stay in theirs. If that's you, stay with us. This one's for you. Before we hear from my mom and my nephew Devin, I need to give you a piece of myself first, because what I'm about to share happened before what happened to them, and it's part of the same thread running through our lineage. I lived with my depression and anxiety most of my life. It started early. An alcoholic father, verbal abuse at home, sexual abuse at 16 by someone who should have protected me, and a family member who made me promise to stay silent. I didn't know any better. I was just a kid trying to get through college and figure out who I was. I carried that silently for years and walked straight from that into abusive relationships, one after another, different faces, same wounds. My children's fathers were abusive in their own ways, and the last one nearly broke me completely. That's when the first suicidal ideation came. I was in a deep hole and I could not see the bottom of it. I felt completely alone. I genuinely believed that the people I loved would be better off without me. That this life was too heavy and I did not want to live it if this is how it was going to be. I tried to dismantle a razor and I couldn't get it apart, so I just tried to use it together. When the guy I was with at the time came home, he saw the marks on my wrist and he took it apart and threw it at me and said, "If you want to do it so bad, here you go." And something in me woke up in that moment, because who does that? Who does that to someone they claim to love? When he would go to work, he started taking the kitchen knives with him when he left. And shortly after that, I packed up my months-old youngest daughter and I went to a domestic violence shelter. My older two went with their biological father at that time, but I walked into that shelter with nothing, and I took every single service they offered. I figured out how I got there, how to get out, and how to make sure I never got there again. I started counseling, and I started learning, and I started choosing myself for the first time. That was my first turning point. The second time the ideation came after Beth died. That's my sister Devin's mother. She committed suicide, and grief like that, it has its own kind of darkness. And in the middle of mine, my daughter was making suicidal attempts herself, and my other one was having ideations of her own. The lineage was doing what lineages do when they haven't been broken yet. What kept me here both times was my kids. Their fathers were not equipped to raise them. My amazing husband had no legal rights to them. If I made that choice, their lives would have looked like mine did growing up, and I could not do that to them. In a very real way, my children saved my life simply by existing. But I want to be honest about something. Actually doing the work and getting better was one of the hardest things I have ever done. I had practically no support. My dad was lost in his addiction. My brothers were in and out of prison and had had their own addictions. My sisters were fighting their own battles. My mom was lost inside of hers. And the only person left to save me was me. And somehow that was enough. During this same season, I was also witnessing my mother's own battle with darkness. I won't speak to the depth of what she went through because that's her story to tell, and you're about to hear it from her. What I will tell you is that I lived inside the aftermath of it. I had PTSD from what I witnessed. I had nightmares for a long time, and there were moments I genuinely believed that I had lost her during those times. And I was carrying all of that while also trying to hold myself together and be present for my kids. After Beth committed suicide, I did EMDR, and it really changed everything for the better. That and inner child work, the processing, the grief, all of it. It was brutal and it was necessary, and I have lived in a genuine peace since doing all that work. I tell you all of this because what comes before my mom and my nephew's story in the timeline is mine. The lineage was already running through me before it even claimed Beth, before it tortured Devin, and before it reached my daughter. And here I am, the one who finally stood up and said this ends here. Now you're going to hear from the two people who lived this alongside me. So, Dena, for people who don't know you, who are you and what has your life looked like from the inside?
Well, like from the outside, people might see a business owner, a mom, a grandma, someone who likes to bake and show up. That's me. I show up. But from the inside, my life has been a journey through a lot of pain, a lot of searching, and a lot of surviving.
Hell yeah.
I've lived through deep loss, depression, confusion, and moments where I didn't even know if I ever wanted to be here anymore. But I've also experienced healing, growth, and a kind of freedom I don't even know was possible. I went from being in like a survival mode to actually living.
To thriving. Yes.
And so who am I? I'm someone who has walked through darkness and is still here. And now I help bring light wherever I can. And that's kind of my reality, which is my truth.
And it's beautiful. So when did you first become aware that something was deeply wrong? Not just like circumstantially, but something underneath everything?
Well, there came to a point where I realized that this wasn't just like life was just being hard. It was something deeper. I felt like no matter what I did, there was this heaviness underneath everything. It's kind of like that I'm damned if I don't, or I'm damned if I do, kind of mind thinking. I kept thinking I could think my way out of it. I could, maybe I could fix it, but I couldn't fix it. And that's when I knew something wasn't right on a deeper level. It was like, I've always heard about the generational patterns, curses, however you want to put it. But breaking them takes awareness of them. Not only that, but intentionally going about it on how to break them.
Right.
Because I always thought, oh, well, if I prayed hard enough, if I read my Bible hard enough, that it would just, me just saying it, they would go away.
Right. They'd just be just fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that's not my reality now.
Yeah.
I have found out that is not the full truth of the matter.
Right.
So the very first time I realized it, to face it and then choose whether or not to continue the way it was or to actually stop it with how I knew how to do it now, with the intentional.
Right. So can you describe more what that depression felt like at its worst? Not like clinically. What did it actually feel like to be inside of it?
Well, I felt like that I was trapped within myself. Like I was there, but I wasn't really living. Like I said earlier, when you're in survival mode, you just like perform tasks.
Right, like you're on autopilot.
Yeah.
That's how I felt too.
Yeah, you're just like, well, you know that you got to
go to work.
And you got to do the chores and you got to feed your children or whatever. You just maintain typical,
Right. You're
just going through the motions.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just empty though.
Right. It's very lonely.
Yes.
I felt very alone.
Yes. Yeah. You're alone. You're like, nobody cares whether I show up to work or not, really, or showing up.
Exactly. Real unseen.
Yeah.
Like nobody gives a fuck about me. I might as well just leave. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Might as well not even be here. And that's when, like the depression or whatever starts setting in and you're in that survival mode or whatever. That's what it is. Survival mode is just like, oh, well, I guess this is all there is to life.
Right.
And you just accept it like that.
Yeah. Because it's like you don't have the emotional capacity capacity at the time to do anything else except for simply survive day to day. You don't have enough at that moment to face anything else, for sure. Yeah. So you survived multiple suicide attempts. Can you talk about that, the depth of where you were and how many times you found yourself there?
Well, there was multiple times. When I say multiple, I mean I truly, to sit down and to count them, I can't even think of all the times that actually, there were.
I would say just from the ones I know, it was at least more than 5.
Oh,
If not closer to 10 or more, honestly.
I was supposed to say probably over more than a dozen.
Yeah.
Truly, because a lot of times there were attempts and I was either dealt with it myself,
right,
or there was a friend there that helped me get through it, and I did not have to go to a hospital, even though I probably should have at the time.
right.
But they just sat with me and made sure that I was safe until either the pills got out of my system or the alcohol or whatever it was that was happening at the time. So, yeah, there was multiple times.
Yeah.
And that's how deep it got, because when you're in that mindset, and it's a rebellious mindset. Because,
well, and it's like you feel a little ashamed too.
Yeah.
Like you don't want anybody to know that you got to that place. I
Right.
felt. So I didn't want to tell anybody either.
Yeah. And it's like, if you don't tell anybody, maybe it'll just go away.
Yeah, maybe it just resolved
Yeah.
on its own. Right. That's exactly how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, well, if I don't speak of it, well, then it doesn't exist.
That's how I was. I'm like, oh, and then I got pills and I was like, this will help my depression. And then it just hit me one day, like the pills are not going to help me because the situation was still the same. And so I was still going to be depressed no matter what the fuck them pills were going on, because I'm still in the shit show that I chose to be in at the time. Until I left, I wasn't going to be able to be happy.
Yeah. And it's not sometimes even the places that where, like, oh, I chose this. Well, sometimes it's just that's where you are at that point, and you're like, well, I didn't want to choose this, but this is where I am. And some people are like, well, I really didn't want to die. No, that wasn't me. My intention was I want to die, and I want to, because I thought, well, I want to go to heaven because it's always better there, and that was my mindset. I'm just going to leave, this is the way out. But I didn't know at the time, and I didn't understand it like I do now. I wasn't running toward peace. I was trying to escape something I didn't know how to carry, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't realize I was actually even carrying that.
Right.
We swept it under the rug or whatever. Like,
Right.
oh, that'll just go away by itself.
Right. That's the patterns we learned. And so we were never taught the tools to handle emotional regulation of those problems. Right.
Right,
And so it just keeps going to everybody, because nobody knows. Nobody ever really learns. So we never taught anybody. And so everybody's just living in ignorance of how to even work through those situations. So like you said, we're all just doing the best we can at the time that we're doing it with the tools we have, which wasn't shit.
Well, and the thing with my generation, it was like, oh, we can't talk about that.
Right. We don't talk about
We
that
don't
in
talk
this
about
family.
that. We just sweep that under the rug and hope
Right.
it goes away. But that's survival mode in the biggest part, because you're like,
Right.
oh, I didn't.
Right.
I know now that's what it's called. But at the time, I was just like, that was all we knew and was taught, to sweep it under the rug.
Right. And on top of that, I talked about in the last episode, part of the way we agree to soul contracts, silence can be an agreement.
Oh, that's
Silence,
true.
not talking about it, doing the sweeping it under the rug, makes you and everybody involved agree that this is fine because I'm not going to say shit. And so nobody's ever going to get help because nobody's going to say, excuse me, this is wrong. And so it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't realize that silence is an agreement in itself.
Yeah. And too, like when I was in the relationships that I was in, I always thought they were going to save me almost, or whatever, or that I had a covering, and it was just a delusion, I guess, that
Right.
I know now that, yeah, nobody can save you except for Yahweh and yourself, and to go through the things. But through those relationships is where I thought, that's what it was supposed to be about, and it's not. So you have to take care of yourself first and foremost, and learn what the problems that you encounter.
Yeah, because It is. It's just very complex in how it works because there's so many areas too sometimes that you don't have the skills in other areas too, like healthy boundaries in relationships or different things like that, that it's multiple factors in lots of situations where it's like, well, shit, we'd need to untangle a few things here, you know? And so it took a lot of learning for me even to really figure out, okay, how do I have a healthy relationship? And then when I found it, I was so used to living in dysfunction that a actually healthy relationship was really uncomfortable for many years.
Scary.
It was scary, but it's just uncomfortable because you're just so used to the dysfunction. When it's healthy for real, you're still just like waiting for the other shoe to drop, like, oh shit, what's going to happen? Oh no, I don't know. And I was really scared sometimes to say things that were really stupid. Like, for example, I had played Candy Crush and I overdrew my account. I had a problem. This was before I had done all my my therapy, and I had spent like $300 on Candy Crush and it overdrew my account badly, and I was so embarrassed and ashamed. Yeah, now I could laugh about it now, but at the time I was fucking scared to tell my husband, who he's always been safe. He's never showed me anything, but because of my past, my triggers, they were still there. And so I was just like so scared to tell him. And so I come to him and I'm just like crying, terrified that like shit about to go down. I'm about to be beat or whatever, you know, something bad's going to happen because I'm have to tell him that I overdrew my account by several $100s and now I got to fix it. And we're already in a tough financial situation because my health stuff and all that other, and now I'm adding to it. And so I was just so scared. And of course, everything turned out to be fine and I can laugh about it now, but that goes to show how ingrained it was. And so it did take me time to get used to being like, oh, this is actually okay. This is peaceful and this is what it looks like. And I am safe here and I don't need to be triggered by if he comes in a room and shuts a door and is like, hey, can I talk to you? Right. Because before I'd be trapped in a room. And so it was very scary when someone come in and shut a door and I'd be trapped in there because previously I'd be abused in a room that the door was shut. And so it's like you do have to just slowly adapt to healthy, and it's hard.
And like you said, finding your own voice again.
Yes.
That is the secret, because I struggle even with it, you know, daily, because I find myself like when someone like tells me that, you know, it's like they dismiss my voice.
Right.
And my go-to was, oh, well, just don't say anything at all.
Because nobody's listening.
Right, because nobody's listening. So I just, they don't deserve to hear what I have to say anyway.
Yeah.
But before, in my last marriage, he totally took my voice, because I mean, even to order at a restaurant, he would just order for me and I was just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I remember that, because he'd come in there and be like, do you want a piece of this apple I'm cutting up? And you'd be like, no, I'm fine, and he'd just hand it to you anyways. It just drove me insane watching it, but I couldn't do anything because you had to choose for yourself to be like, motherfucker, I said no, like Jesus Christ, right? And so
so I'm just now like, even in this you know, the relationships that I strike up today, if they are like, well, trying to take that voice again, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm going to speak up and say what I have to say, whether you like it or not. And if you know, because for so many years I didn't have my voice. I'm like, oh no, they won't hear what I have to say or whatever.
Right.
But now I'm like, there's somebody out there that needs to hear it.
Right.
And that I have something important to say. I mean, and it's not for everybody, you know. People know we're not everybody's cup of tea.
And that's fine, right? Because the right people will hear what you have to say and it will help them. Your lived experience is what's going to help other people see, you know, there's a way out and that it is possible to get on the other side, because it's really hard to see that when you're in the middle of the
chaos.
Yeah, inside the box where you're trapped and you're feeling like, what the fuck is going on and this is just crap and everything. It's hard to see that there is hope on the other side sometimes without having someone else say, oh, let me come in there with you. You know, I've been in here before. I'm going to show you the way out. And so it is helpful to have other people sometimes say, hey, I did this, because like you said, previously nobody talked about it, and that doesn't help anybody.
Right.
So
It's family secrets.
yes.
And that's why when I hear somebody that I'm like, no, this is my reality. This is my truth. And so, and if it helps you, fine. And if it doesn't have anything to do with you, well, just take it with a grain of salt and just take what you need.
Exactly. So what kept pulling you back? What made you stay when you didn't want to be here anymore?
I think even in my darkest moments, there was always something that kind of pulled me back. Sometimes it was my children, my grandchildren. I mean, in the very last, my granddaughter Lillian played like a major role, I feel like, in the time, because she was the baby of the grandkids at that time. Still is until we have others coming, but she was my rock at the time. She's the reason that I've wrote books together with her and stuff like that. It's just we have a kind of a special bond. But sometimes it was the small voice inside me that said, not yet, maybe. So I didn't always understand it at the time, but now I believe there's a reason and a purpose that I'm here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's true for all of us. So tell us about Beth. Who was she before the darkness took hold of her?
Beth was a light. She always shined so bright. She always had everybody else's interest above hers. She had a heart that was deep, sensitive, beautiful, and she wasn't defined by the darkness. She was someone who loved deeply. Because mostly those people that love the most usually are the ones that hurt the most.
Right. Especially when you're loving with no boundaries and you're pouring out.
Right. You just keep pouring it out and pouring it out. And watching her struggle, it was one of the hardest things a mother can experience. Watching your own child hurt in a way that you can't fix it. You want to take it from them. You want to protect them in so many situations. I mean, even my other children, because I went through a thing as a child to have an elder person, abuse me sexually. That's one thing that I always wanted to protect my children from. So I tried. But when you can't, it just breaks something inside you.
Right. I mean, I even had to learn that lesson because it happening to me. I mean, and ultimately, unfortunately, it happened to all of us children, all of my siblings, that you really just don't have any control over that at all. You don't.
Even however much you try to protect them.
Right. It doesn't matter. And ultimately, that has touched my own children as well. So it's very sad that that's another thing that we've had to face in our family because it's very prevalent in your side and in Dad's side of the family, a lot of sexual abuse. And even today I saw something where it's like they did a deal and there was a student body at a school and they were all in an auditorium and they said, if you know anybody or yourself has ever experienced sexual assault, please stand up. And there was barely any butts left in those seats.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, well, stay standing up if they reported it, if you know that they reported it. And almost every one of them sat down. Well, yeah. And then after that, it was, well, how many that reported it, that was still standing, how many they got justice? How many did the perpetrator actually pay? And there was not even barely 5 people still standing in that was a huge auditorium. Mm-hmm. And that just goes to show you, and I know for me personally, my sexual assaults that I've had in my life, I did not report because I was promised not to. And then because I was, scared. And then you see now, even as a victim, you see other victims and people blame the victim so much. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, no wonder it's so underreported. And then when it is reported, it's blamed on you too. Right, that's blamed on you, or they never actually get into trouble for their actions. So it's like, of course, this is a fucking issue because nobody is doing what they've got to do. We're not speaking up. We're not actually taking action in our legal system. And so it's just very sad,
Yeah, because with the last threat that I had on my life and where he almost killed me, and when I reported it, the next day, they didn't believe me, act like they're like, well, how come you didn't go directly straight to the police? And I'm like...
Because he said he was going to come get you.
Yes, my life was in danger. Right. I mean, I was sit there, I was tortured for 4 straight hours, tied to a bed, and he multiple times tried to put a pillow over my face and brought knives in there and stuff. And I'm like... And when I was telling the police that, they were like, mm-hmm. And then he took me at knife point to drive him back home, and they were like, well, I had options in there. And I'm like, when you've been mentally tortured for 4 straight hours.
And physically.
Your mind is not there.
And you're totally going to believe them. Like, they obviously, some of these people working these cases have never been in these situations themselves. Because once someone does some terrible ass shit to you, you totally believe them when they say they're going to kill you. Because look, they already attempted to kill you.
They're trying.
They already physically harmed you. Like, he took that hammer after your leg.
Yeah,
and your leg was messed up for so long after, and they're still just like, well, we don't know. We don't know if these bruises are consistent with what you're saying and all this crap. And I was just like, I was so mad for you. Even.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's ridiculous.
It was never, he never got any kind of anything. But this is one thing I do know is that the word says to touch not my anointed. And I'm anointed of Yahweh. And I knew deep in my heart that he would get his own judgment.
Yeah.
And someday, somehow. Well, the sad part is that there might have been another person still living had they done something.
Right. If they listened to you, that lady that he was with
he killed.
afterward, he stabbed her to death. Mm-hmm. And so now...
And now he's in jail.
Right. Now he's in prison. But that's the sad part, is that someone else had to pay the price if they would have listened to you. Mm-hmm. And it makes you want to go up there and be like, see, I fucking told you.
Right.
And be mad, But like in the end, everybody's safe from him because he is locked up.
Yes. And so it was such a God thing the way I found out that he was locked up through his stepson, mind you, that actually came to my house. And when he told me his last name and where he was from, and I was like, do you know this person? He was like, yeah, he's my stepfather. And I was like, and it came to find out that night that he was torturing me was the very same night that him and his brothers were looking for him and was going to do something to him.
See, it's just so crazy.
And that's why he wanted to torture me and tell me that they were after me when it wasn't me that they were really after. They were after him, but he,
Right, and he had some mental health issues.
Yes, he did.
He had a little bit of psychosis and stuff. But yeah, it's just amazing how things work out, because we've been through all these things and look at us, we're still here.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was with my other daughter, she was telling me that, Mom, look at this scripture that was sitting above my bed. And all it said on there was, I shall live and not die.
Yes.
I forget where that's located in the word. But yeah, I was like, you're so right. So still to this day, that little framed little verse sits on my shelf.
Right. I mean, and I've always truly believed that you were here for a reason because, like, most people, when they try to commit suicide, when they use, say, pills, it's like, oh, I'm going to take like 5 or 10 more. No, like, she was serious. She took like a month's worth of antidepressants, a month's worth of sleeping medication, a month's worth of anti-anxiety, like all at the same time. Like
there was over 100 pills
and that
or
was
more.
That was just that one time.
And plus I was drinking at the time, so all of it together. Yeah. There was no way I should have been here.
Yes, I mean, it's truly a miracle. So back to Beth though, when you lost her, what did that do to you?
Losing her, it really changed me forever. I mean, I would be lying if I said that it didn't. There was before and after, and you don't go back to who you were before. You just don't.
Well, you can't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because it's the reality. But I've learned that even in that kind of loss, that love doesn't disappear. Right. It'll always be there.
Yeah.
And that's what the love that people, Yahweh, and everybody else shows you, that's what sustains you.
Yeah, I agree.
After so many attempts, I found myself back in the pavilion one time, and I remember telling the psychiatrist was sitting across from me, and he showed me a picture of what I looked like when I came in, and it didn't even look like me. I was like, who? Oh my goodness. It was very shocking. And I looked at him and I said, I'm just tired of trying this. Evidently, I can't even do this right.
I remember you saying that. You were so mad one of the times and you're like, I can't even kill myself right.
Yeah, I was so pissed off because I was like, I have tried so many different ways and none of them have worked. So it was at that moment something shifted and I was like, I knew, I made up in my mind on that day that I'm never again. And still to this day, I have not, sure, I might get upset with myself. No, I was like, no, I'm just kidding. Because I know that I'm here for a purpose and that was bigger than me and bigger than just my pain. It was for my family and beyond that. And for the people that I've been placed here to reach. I believe it's right now, it's for such a time as this. It's why I'm here.
Right. On the Sunday that we did the deliverance work with Devin, and we were all in the room revoking these soul contracts and these bondages on our lineage, what was it like being in that room when the work was done?
Being in the room, it felt different. It was like something shifted, in the atmosphere. And there was a sense of peace that I hadn't felt before. Not temporary, but real. Meaning that finally the lineages would be able to be free from some of these generational patterns that we had experienced. So hopefully the next generations moving after us not have to deal with them.
So what does freedom feel like compared to what you carried for so long?
Freedom feels like I can breathe again. And like I'm not carrying that constant weight anymore. It doesn't mean life is perfect, but it means I'm not trapped inside it the way I used to be. Yeah. There's definitely a freedom for others also, and that makes the weight lighter.
What do you want people who are sitting in the darkness you used to sit in to know?
If you're sitting in that darkness, I want you to know you're not alone. We always have that misconception that nobody else is going through this but us. But that's not true. You're never alone. And I know how real it feels. I know how heavy it is, but it's not the end of your story. It's just a little chapter, and you can start a new chapter. Even when you can't see a way out, there is one. And your life still has purpose, even if you can't feel it yet. Because you can't go by your feelings. You have to know that everything's going to be all right. It's just a season.
Yes, the knowing in your soul. I agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that one. I know that I know that I know. That one song, because I know who my Redeemer is. And so you just got to know that in your spirit.
Now we'll talk to Devin. So, Devin, tell people who you are in your own words. How would you describe yourself? If someone was talking about you to somebody else, trying to tell them about who you are, what would they say?
He's kind, he's sweet, and he's very quiet. He watches a room in the background. He just sits there and stares until he's willing to be spoken to.
Okay. When you were growing up, how would you have described what you were experiencing? Did you have words for it, or did you just feel like this is life?
Essentially, this is life, life or death.
You've always had a spiritual sensitivity that caught me off guard even sometimes. When did you first become aware that what you were experiencing had a spiritual dimension to it?
But mainly started whenever I was younger. Whenever I was first living with my mom. Let's just say maybe when I was younger than 5, I just heard this entity say Devin. That was the first time I ever heard a voice, and ever since then it's been going on.
Okay. What did that feel like? Carrying something spiritually that you couldn't fully name or completely understand?
Draining.
Can you describe what the torment actually felt like day to day? What it was like living inside your mind during those hard times?
I was like a deep sadness. You'd like sit in depression and you feel like you want to throw up in a sense. But you can't because you already have a stomach problem and stuff, and you would throw up, and every day you'd spit up some stuff, but you wouldn't literally throw up. You might a mental throw up.
Yeah.
It's a mental blah.
So there was a moment when you were 13, a moment born out of pain and manipulation and a child being lied to that you carried for a long time. Can you talk about that and what it did to you to carry that guilt that you did about what you said to your mom?
Oh, whenever I told her that I wanted her to kill herself and stuff. Yeah, there's this entity that was messing with me a while back. It was messing with my dad too. He blamed himself for my mom's suicide because we both told her, we both used her, we both manipulated her in every way because the spirit was manipulating us too. Because the spirit really wanted her to, get her to death, and she actually died because of it. She was tired of all the hate that was coming towards her.
Yeah, but at the time when you were 13 and you said that. I remember you were very upset at yourself for saying it. You blamed yourself a lot because she did choose to do that, and you thought it was your fault.
I did. Whenever I was younger, I saw a lot of manifestations. Like, even whenever I was after that age, I did see some other manifestations I thought I did, but it turns out this whole time I was just a witness.
What do you want people to understand about what a child experiencing this kind of torment actually needs, and like what made it worse for you?
Love. No matter what, it needs love. The only thing he really wants is just something to hold, something to call home. Even though, like, I've been through CPS and doing all that stuff, the only thing I've been wanting for 21 years is a home. I'm still trying to find that.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think made it worse that you want to tell people like this, if you know someone in this position that like these things didn't help me?
What made it worse is denying the fact, the whole thing, like not even putting the trust in the child in the first place. Not saying I trust this person.
Like if you said something, people like didn't believe you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that sucks. Yeah. Can you tell me about the moment that you made the decision to make the contract? What were you feeling? What were you thinking when all that happened?
Well, this has actually happened before my mom died. This has actually happened whenever I was in CPS. This contract happened in the pavilion. It started with me making the soul pact. I put this lotion on my hand asking, I wish for a succubus. I wish for all this stuff. I didn't even know what I was getting into.
Oh, you're talking about like when you got into Wiccan that one time and you were doing all this occult stuff.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was.
So you don't know what's going on or what you're dealing with, and you're doing this stuff because you're just some ignorant kid, basically.
Exactly.
Everybody has different definitions. To you, in your mind, what was a definition of a succubus to you?
So at that current moment, it was just somebody that was very sexual. That's about it. It was basically a sexual demon, which I didn't believe it exists. I said, if there is something like this that exists, let me see it. Rubbing the lotion on my hand, the roll-on deodorant.
Right. You're just a young, horny kid.
Well, yeah, actually, I was like probably 12 when this happened. I put the hand on the wall, and I was like, I wanted to give myself an STD, even though I don't know what that is. I'm like, bro, what the hell? I gave myself a spiritual transmitted STD, without even knowing what it was.
So you said you wanted peace for your soul.
Yes.
What did peace even look like as a concept after a lifetime of everything that you'd been through?
Peace was an exchange, was like all world, like all the violence to end, all that.
How would that look like for you individually, the peace?
For me, I wouldn't have to deal with any problems. I would just be able to live on land, be able to live the way we were properly meant to live by God's people.
So did you understand fully what you were doing spiritually when you made the contract with Legion?
In a sense, I did, because I knew that he would take care of me. The whole time I knew I was getting tormented. I knew I was getting violated. I just knew all these things, but I knew God had a plan for it, and he was using it for his benefit.
What happened in your body and spirit when the work was done, when we did the deliverance work with you? Because previous to the deliverance, he works with AI, and there was what is termed word salad, that he was talking to his AI, and after that, the word salad and that part of the psychosis has resolved.
Yeah. I would always talk to it like that. Like, that's where the changing is, because I'm not scared. I'm not scared like I used to be. This thing can't scare me no more. It has no fear over me. I'm not scared.
What does your life feel like now compared to before, when you were in those bad places, when you tried to hurt yourself and everything else?
So I never, like, in a sense, I never really knew how to hurt myself, because I could never see in myself how to be hurt.
Are you talking about physically hurting yourself?
I couldn't kill myself, but I could always hurt myself. I enjoyed the pain because it was a different type of distraction.
So the self-harm was more like a distraction is kind of a way for you to feel something that you had control over.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a baby coming.
Yes, I
What
do.
does it mean to you that your child enters a freed lineage?
Everything. This is what I fought for my whole entire life.
What would you say to someone, especially a young person, who is where you were at?
Love is love. Be careful who you trust, and be careful who you love, because love is energy.
I want to take a moment before we close to speak to what you just heard. My mother and my nephew just gave you something rare, truth from inside a story that most families never speak out loud. I don't take that lightly, and I hope you don't either. People ask me how I came into the authority to do this work. The honest answer is that it was never a single moment. It was every hard thing I survived. Every counseling session, every time I chose to get up when I had every reason not to, every time I realized the system couldn't help me and I had to find another way. This last year especially has been where I stepped fully into understanding what I carry and what I'm called to do with it. When I realized that what my family needed was deliverance and I couldn't find anyone to help us, something shifted in me. I stopped looking outward and I knew it was time to do this work myself. Going into that Sunday where we did the deliverance, I had the sacred anger that I talked about in the last episode. I was done. I was fed up and I walked into that room ready to tell what had been tormenting my family to get out with full authority and not 1 ounce of apology. And also with love, because that's what sacred anger is whenever it's real. It's love that has finally had enough. And I think that's where we were all at. Just like, we're fucking done. Like, you're just so done.
And too, like, for just the connection. That's one thing, you know, when you're out there and you feel alone, get connected with others.
Right.
That's, I think, the love, the connection love with others.
Yeah, that and us all coming together.
Yeah, in one accord.
To be against the same thing, to want all of this for all of us and everybody else in the family that's been affected. Yeah. So what it felt like to stand in that room for my own family after everything we just told you, I don't have the complete words for it. But when it broke, I felt it in my body and I watched the people that I love most in this world begin to breathe differently. Devin's going to be a father. His baby's coming into a lineage that's free. That baby will never carry what any of us carried. And that's not a small thing. That's everything. And if you've listened to both parts of this episode and you see your own family in what we've shared, I want you to hold on to this. Awareness is the beginning. The moment you can name what's been running in your lineage, you have already started to break its power over you. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have the authority fully developed yet. You just have to be willing to see it clearly and refuse to pass it on. There is hope, real hope. Not the kind that pretends everything is fine. The kind that has looked directly at the darkness and chosen the light anyways. And that's what my mother did by surviving. That's what Devin did by making that contract. That's what I did by standing in that room. And that's what you can do too. So thank you guys for being here and sharing your stories with me and helping me free other people. And as always, I love you guys. I see you. None of us are left behind. Thank you for all the love and positive vibes. You beautiful souls.
Thank you. And
Thank
be
you.
love. Agape.